Hey, Roddy. Thanks for that intro. It was awesome. And hello, everyone else. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I hope you're safe, healthy, and warm, regardless of where you are. I'm coming to you from snowy New Mexico, which is home to 19 Pueblo tribes that have been fighting for their sovereignty for centuries. As Roddy said, my name's Lauren Ruffin. I use the she series of pronouns. I'm a brown skinned Black woman wearing a black shirt with curly, unruly hair that I'm starting to think matches my unruly personality. There is a white dresser in my background with a green tote bag hanging on it, a red frame picture of a dark skinned boy blowing bubblegum, and the beginning of a multicolored Lego city that I've been building bit by bit. As Roddy mentioned, I'm currently the co-CEO of Fractured Atlas, which is an association of artists, and I'm also the co-founder of immersive storytelling. We're trying to ensure that the virtual worlds being built right now are inclusive of the experiences, values, and expectations of communities that are traditionally underrepresented in the digital space. Big props to Roddy, Sally, Jay, and the entire Eyebeam team for asking me to host this event today, which, given my aforementioned penchant for unruly behavior, is a real-time display of their brave, bold leadership presence. The theme for today's showcase centers on issues and concepts that I care deeply about: creating safe, brave digital spaces, experimenting with intimacy and connection across distance, and forming connections across the species divide. Hell, I was about this close from dropping out of law school to become a dog trainer. So I love what this group of artists, these explorers, adventurers, technologists, trailblazers that we're going to meet today are doing to pioneer spaces that are developing in real time, often out of sight, and at the very edges of our understanding of what's possible. Their work touches on aspects of our humanity that were often invisible to all but those of us living somewhat or entirely remote lives prior to March 2020. One of the things that I'm most profoundly grateful for is that so many more of us are wrestling with these big questions. Is there a way to improve upon our age-old understanding of community as we build new digital spaces? Can we possibly take the richness and depth of live performance and make meaning of that work on a flat screen? How are we demanding more of technology with regard to ethics, human rights, and our dignity? And then as I was working on this, a few more questions were posed yesterday by my friend and colleague, Sophia Park. And although she was referencing the ongoing real-world hate crimes against the Asian American community, these are seminal questions that all of us working in virtual worlds should keep at our core. What is safety? How do we create safe spaces and communities where safety is at the forefront? What are the actionable steps we can take while keeping our loved ones safe in a system that was built to enforce oppression? What is justice? What is justice? A few years ago, at our annual Fractured Atlas all-staff gathering, I led the team through an exercise that asked them to reimagine the organization at various intervals: 5 months, 5 years, 5 decades, even 5 centuries. The most interesting outcome of that visioning was imagining that in 5 decades, AI beings would be the primary generators of creativity, and that Fractured Atlas had played a role in advocating for these AI creators as more than digital enslaved beings. That is a wild-ass future to consider, right? But is that justice? Many of us in this particular space today have spent years navigating certain firm realities. In our professional lives, it might have been the reality of grants, dealing with boards, of production timelines, of tours and exhibits. In our personal lives, the walks to the grocery store, commuting by car, train, and bike become these reliable touch points, a signal that everything is working the way that we want it to work. But in the last year, we've had to create new realities, both large and small, many of which were outside of our locus of control. Maybe you or someone you know has moved to another city or town and had to form new routines while maintaining a connection with old friends. Or maybe it's working from home, learning the ins and outs of captioning videos, live streaming, and how expensive commercial internet is. Perhaps your primary companion is your pet, and you've decided to teach them to communicate with you via an alternative communication device. I'm starting to believe that the discomfort we're experiencing is really the duality of existing in a liminal space, straddling a world that's not yet been sunset while the new world twinkles at dawn. My thinking is that this straddling of two worlds is permanent And that's why the work that Eyebeam and their artists are doing is so vital. My prediction is that by 2025, more than 95% of creatives will be earning the majority of their income online. How can early access to the volumetric performance toolkit we're going to learn about later today position them for digital success and autonomy? And as we spend time together in this space less than 24 hours after NASA successfully placed a rover on Mars to continue our search for life on other planets, what can we learn from Apian's interspecies communication work? The speakers and presenters that we're going to meet today exist at the precipice of what's possible, and they're asking you to join them. I won't bullshit you. Standing at the edge of a precipice is terrifying, but it's also an opportunity to remake ourselves and our boundaries. So with that, we can get this party started. Our first speaker is Asa Raskin. Asa is the co-founder of Earth Species Project, an open source collaborative nonprofit dedicated to decoding animal communication. He's taken 3 companies from founding to acquisition, is a co-chair of the World Economic Forum's Global AI Council, helped found Mozilla Labs, was named Fast Company's Master of Design, and is listed on Forbes and Inc. magazine's 30 for 30. Let's get that going.